This week's Latin message, De Mortuis Nil Nisi Bonum, and I didn't flub the pronunciation because no one knows how to pronounce Latin because the Romans have been dead for a long time. But this week's Latin message is brought to you by Dvorak Machine, and it means, of the dead say nothing but good. Our buddy Dan Dvorak, who helped us get into drag racing, well, not drag racing, but stock eliminator racing and all kinds of crazy stuff. That's his car back there. He died last Saturday, a couple days ago, and can't say it was unexpected. He's been in pretty bad health for the last few years, and you know, Mike and I went down there and visited him in the hospital last year, and everybody thought he was going to be dead, but he snapped out of it and he's back. And then he had the doctors did not do well by that guy. He ended up getting a blood infection and blood poisoning and died. That happens to everybody eventually. So we're all very sad about that. He was a cool cat. You know, we had a lot of good times with that guy. You know, he was imperfect like all humans, and you know, not everybody had a great time with him, but most people did, and he was really a fun guy to be around. He at one time was the fastest stalker on the planet, I guess in the 80s. He ran that A-Stalker. It might have even been that car. He went all the way down to 1014 at 130 miles an hour at Indy one year, and Indy's got famously horrible air, and it was really hot, and you know, he set the world on fire. He came out west one time in the 70s, 80s, late 70s, and people still talk about him. You know, he really was an interesting cat. He did a lot of wild stuff, and you know, it's fun stories about driving out here in a van with no air conditioning, and you know, everybody knew him. All kinds of people have great stories about him. We were able to go down and work on our race car at the Gator Nationals. I think I talked about that in a video earlier, but it was a real bucket list thing to work on our car in his shop, and he had built an engine for us, and we put it in the car there, and we went over to the Gators, and we dragged him out and made him help us out with the car at the Gator Nationals and the Baby Gators, which is the divisional the weekend before the Gator Nationals. And I think he had a good time. It was good to throw rocks at his cage and make him get out and hang out with the public a little bit. You know, he hadn't been racing in a long time. You know, he had this cool car. It's an aluminum nose Hemi 64 Belvedere or Savoy, or I think it's Belvedere. The Lawman, which is a really nice car, and he was always working on that thing, but every time the engine would get pretty much done, he would sell it because he needed to do something with the money. He's famous for always needing money for one thing or another, usually out of us. Boy, you know, after all those years, you never realize what a dry hole Wagons of Steel is for cash. If you're looking for money, go rob a 7-Eleven or something. Even if we owe you money, it's coming the slow way. I mean, we try to honor our debts and stuff, but still. Anyways, I remember one of my favorite memories is putting the car together, and we had it all the engine all in, and fired it up and ran it, changed the oil. We needed to get a couple heat cycles in it and change the oil again, make sure everything was ready for the races. So he put me behind the wheel of the car, and I had to drive up and down 301, which is funny because 301 at Waldo, Florida, where Dan's shop is, used to be the most notorious speed trap in America. I mean, no exaggeration. It was listed in the AAA book. It ended up they ended up eliminating the police department from Waldo altogether because they were so corrupt. They made some humongous amount of money for just this little tiny town. And anyways, drove up and down the road, and I'll tell you what, you know, a race car is at the racetrack is one thing. The racetrack is designed for race cars. Everybody else is in a race car. You know, it's just another race car. I mean, I love my race car, and it's a race car among race cars. Don't get me wrong, but It's a whole different ball game driving your race car on the road, especially a familiar road. You know, like 301, or sometimes I drive my race car up the street out in front of my house up to the transfer station around the corner to weigh it, and it's just, for some reason, I don't know why, it's just really terrifying to drive a race car on the street. So this day, you know, he said, yeah, get it all the way up into high gear and, you know, slow down and whack it again. And so, you know, like, just it being in a you know, 10-second race car out on 301, I get out there and hit the gas, and, you know, like, I'm kind of, there's not that much traffic, but, like, I come out next to a car and hit the gas, and it must have been like watching the Millennium Falcon in Star Wars. Just poof, and then I slow down, the car catches up with me again, poof, then away I go, and then I'm coming down the other side of the highway. And in Florida, they have these road crews. They're not chained together, so I guess they're not technically chain gangs, but they're kind of like chain gangs. So there's all these guys out there in their orange suits with their bags of trash, and I buzzed them a couple of times, and it just made their day, you could tell. And they're like, oh, hit it. And so I hit it, and boy, they just loved every second of that. So that's a good memory of Dan being out at his shop doing that. I don't think what else we've done with that guy. I went and sat with him at a bunch of Mopar shows at Big Daddy Don Garlis' Museum of Drag Racing. He would sell jobs and Dvorak machine stuff, and I printed all his T-shirts for years. And so, you know, I would bring a bunch of T-shirts down and sell T-shirts for him. And he would judge the cars. And then, you know, it's a shame he isn't around to tell the stories anymore. And I should have probably written some of them down as he was telling them. But the story of getting that car is hilarious. You know, he saw somebody driving that car going the other direction on the road, and he whipped a U-turn with a trailer and a race car on it and caught up with the guy. He scared the hell out of him and bought it off him on the spot. It's an original Max Wedge race car. For some reason, Dan can recognize such a thing, like going down the highway in the opposite direction, 50 miles an hour each. You know, so at 100 miles an hour, he can recognize a real deal Max Wedge car. You know, just telling the stories of putting that thing together, and then some of his buddies. You know, I remember what was his friend who's the name escapes me, but he talked about Top Cow Eliminator running into a black Angus cow in the middle of the night while they were towing a Hemi Barracuda to some race, and they had to ruined the van, so they had to like drive into the next town in the Hemi Superstocker, which just sounds like a real blast. And, like, you know, the cops loved the car so much they gave him an escort. He raced a lot. He had a lot of records. I remember when we first started going there, we like tripped over this box of Wally's. It's like, for Christ's sakes, Dan, put these things somewhere. And so he eventually got a case and had them all in a case. He had all kinds of records and a lot of Wally's. What else did he do? He did a lot of... he was a good father. He had a stepdaughter and a son and a daughter. And I don't think they were on too good of terms at the end, which is a shame. You know, take care of yourself and take care of your relations with your family. You never know. But his shop was really close to Gainesville Raceway, so people would come in and fix stuff that was broken at the Gator Nationals. I remember I would come down and watch the Gators long before I started racing stock eliminator, and, you know, people would come in desperate, and, you know, I remember saying, I can heal the sick, but I can't raise the dead, and he'd pull all kinds of magic voodoo on people's cars, and he's always really generous that way. You know, I'm gonna miss that motherfucker. Try to do well by him, and, you know, it happens to everybody. So if there's any lesson to be taken away from it, take care of yourself, and be careful about those doctors. Holy crap. Alright, well, this is a short one. I will get back on the program, and next week I got some ideas, so I promise I won't let another month go by. I'll do another YouTube video soon. And in the meantime, enjoy the late spring weather, and I will see you soon. Keep the rubber side down and the shiny side up.